Hello and welcome to Thrive On. Stay tuned and learn how thinkers, philosophers, artists, coaches and teachers thrive. Thriving, it's not always what you think it is it? From authenticity to activism, keeping your principles to life lessons, challenges, shifts, inspiring, guiding and leading others. A weekly dose of reality from people in the business of life. Jamie Catto is a generous soul and friend. In this podcast, we talk specifically about his new film with Ram Dass, Becoming Nobody, alongside real solid ideas for compassion to yourself throughout your own unique creative journey, and how to recognize the hidden gems in the ebbs and flows of inspiration. There's a lot in this podcast, so grab a pen and paper and a cuppa if you wish, and let's go meet Jamie. Jamie Catto, for me, is a social media person of interest and friend. He's got balls. He's out there sharing posts that some of us hide in our heads, mixed with creative insights, delightful prose, and fear-bursting challenges. All that comes with years of experience in sharing and creating, along with connectivity. Founder member of Faithless, awesome. Co-creator of One Giant Leap, also awesome. Workshop, play shop, agitator of shadows. Author of Insanely Gifted, and now director and composer of the beautiful Ram Dass film, Becoming Nobody. The arc of this film opens your heart in a fun and playful way. Their sweet and lovingly wicked humour honoured throughout with their interplay and their relationship, and Jamie's uncanny observation of Ram Dass's teachings that to use playfulness and self-depreciating insights help lift the veil of our seriousness towards the human condition. I loved the film personally. Thanks so much for making it, or should I say movie. Welcome to Thrive On.
Thank you. Wow, that's really great. I should have put that on my website, everything you just wrote. New biog.
Available for copyright working. I wanted to talk to you today about the Ram Dass film and Becoming Nobody and how you personally draw your creativity out. But before I do that, can we just go a little bit further back in time to your One Giant Leap film with Duncan? What gave you the seed or idea to bring world music onto film as an emotive reflection on life and the human experience?
Okay, I shall answer that. There's two stages. The two stages of how that idea was seeded, like most ideas, was nothing lofty or anything really to do with what it became. It was just a conversation over a cup of tea, two musicians, me and Duncan, both like you do, talking about what you do and don't like, what your bugbears are, things like that. And one of our mutual bugbears and passions was that we love what you would call world music. We love all those singers and players and Baba Mal and Harry Prasad Chaurasia and all these incredible worldwide masters, really, and mistresses. But because they live in such countries where they didn't have good recording equipment, all their actual albums are not very well produced. And up until the late 90s, you couldn't get a world music album except, maybe Graceland, which was really beautifully produced, where you could really hear how great the other artists were. So we were like, let's go in the studio and surely we could make some music where you could really hear how great they are. So we started playing around with a mixture of epic Pink Floyd-y type soundscapes and hip hop beats and different things, and came up with a sound that made you really appreciate how incredible each of those players and those singers were. And that was the first part. It was almost like a showcasing or using all those different sounds and people as a palette to really make something incredible where you couldn't miss how incredible they were. Then what happened was, because we got signed by Chris Blackwell, who was the guy that started Island Records years ago. He signed Bob Marley, U2, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
He signed us and said, I've got a company now called Palm Pictures. There's this new thing coming out called DVD, And we're a DVD company now, so you need to make a DVD, a film that goes with your movie. And then that's when it became, okay, well, it's not that interesting just us going around the world plugging in instruments. How about we interview all the different people we meet and different authors and people that have inspired us and spiritual people and people in the street, everybody, about 15 big concepts that are universal. So whether we're talking to someone in a mud hut in Africa or in a penthouse in Los Angeles, everyone will have something to say about money, God, death, sex, the big kind of subjects of life. And because it was a DVD, we thought, it'd be really amazing to make it just like an album has 12 songs, we'll make a DVD with 12 films, and it'll be like a film album, and each song will be related to one of the films. So that's how it all that was the seed, was really just someone saying that we need a film. And going, what might we do? It's always like necessity becomes the mother of invention.
Yeah, it is. And when you were putting it together, did you, and I guess I'm going to lead it, I'm probably going to ask you a similar question about the current film, Becoming Nobody, but did it just happen that directing it became compositionally one in the same? So just like you're saying about the album, you're interweaving the journey. So what I guess I'm trying to say is that the emotions, even in the words, and I know it's more commonplace now, but even in the words became lyrical, even in the spoken word. So the conversations were like part of the music and vice versa. There was no separation between the two.
Yeah, it was all just different jigsaw pieces that will open the heart and make people's wise, kind, lovely version of themselves be awake and come forward. That's all I ever want to do with any of my stuff. So making it humorous, making it beautifully musical, full of masters, making it photographic, making it whatever makes people enjoyably open their hearts so that the rude, beautiful wisdom can come through. It's always that. So whether it's a piece of interview with Eckhart Tolle, or whether it's a beautiful image of a woman holding a child, or whether it's the way the music swells, or all three of them together, is a way of just getting as much good medicine through the speakers or through the screen into the people.
Yeah. And then, like, at the end of it, you do feel like you went on that journey with them, like any good book. You're kind of reluctant when the credits roll and you're like, I really felt like I was there having that experience with them.
Yeah, that's nice.
So would you say that you took that concept into the Ram Dass film? So there we have the beautiful essence of humor, music, visuals, your conversation and your interplay. Would you say that you again approached that first and foremost as a musical director rather than a director?
Definitely. 100%. Ram Dass's voice in that film is like a lead vocal in a piece of music. And he is sculpted in a way so that, once again, just using whatever elements are available to get it into people's hearts, for the audience to be in the most awakened, loving, humorous, enjoyable human state they can be in. So it's not like you need to generate anything in the viewer. You just need to create an environment for them where their natural beauty, aliveness, sense of heart comes forward. So you're not putting anything into the viewer exactly. You're just creating the environment where, because of the music, because of what he's saying, because of the visuals, because of it just goes as seamlessly into the heart as possible, and excites the mind too in a joyful way. Yeah,
it really did that. It really did that for me. It's great. Your friendship that you have with Ram Dass and the way that you've bonded clearly has that, like, jokey, comedic way of looking at life. How did you first meet, and what was that meeting like for you?
I first met him in the queue of one of his retreats, because he was the kind of teacher, before his stroke, he was the kind of teacher that would queue up in the canteen with everybody else at lunchtime. You know, he wasn't like aloof. And I'd already fallen in love with him a couple of years earlier. His tapes and just his humor and his humanity just made me, the authenticity, it was just definitely, I found my guy. You know, he was just totally on the nose. Yeah. I felt so like family with him. And then when he came to the UK, I was like, bought the first ticket. You know, he was doing a retreat for 10 days or whatever. I was like, I was there, you know. And yeah, I met him in one of the lunches. He sat down with me. He was probably, as I said in the movie, he was curious. I was 10 years younger than the next person of my, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most people are in their 40s and 50s, maybe their 30s. I was in my early 20s. So it's like, what is this guy even doing here, you know?
So it's like the mindfulness days of Eckhart Tolle up in Scotland, that kind of thing.
And I was just like, you know, I always just felt a lovely connection with him. He was always very patient with me. You know, I would write to him sometimes after that session during my 20s, like when I was in Faithless and we were releasing our first big single with me singing, and I wrote to him and I was like, oh God, you know, there seems to be like pressure, you know, like I'm kind of afraid. And he wrote back, he said, look, one of two things will happen. Either the song will be a big hit and that will spur a whole series of interesting experiences, or it won't be. And that'll be a different set of interesting experiences. And that bit of advice like really has kept me through my whole life.
Yeah.
When you're worrying about something, you know, really being honest with myself, especially when you release entertainment, things like music and films and books, is your sphere of influence on how it's going to go, where it's going to go, how many people came or bought it, or it's just, even if you've got a huge mega budget like U2, you still can't control everyone to come and like it and buy it and send it to their friends. It's like, it's not about the budget. That's just a help. Yeah. But really, at the end of the day, whenever you release anything, you're rolling a 1,000-sided dice. The chaotic things of this person heard it on that day when they were in this mood and sent it to that person times a million. You just can't control it, you know. So just keep coming back to trusting one's own enjoyment.
Yeah, that's really useful advice. And do you think that because obviously you can get a sense of that from when you're on social media, and obviously a lot of people are extremely impressed with what you've managed to, you know, and because of your own work and your own diligence and, you know, wanting to do things for other people. Do you think that your humour is balanced in its informity, or do you feel that sometimes you can still get swept away with kind of like, okay, now it's
I get totally swept away with being a goon in a totally unconscious way, and often not, you know. I just hope that when I do get swept away being a goon, I notice it, you know. It's not about not tripping up or not, you know, when you live like me, which is like quite upfront, you know, like in my private life, in my personal life, I'm super introverted, and I, you know, there has to be a good reason for me to get dressed. But in my professional life, I'm like super out there and like to what most people would consider risky, in the sense that I might post things that will cause a lot of people to disagree with me or flame me. Yeah. And I actually I have a particular taste for inappropriate things. They really make me laugh. And watching people get in a flap about nothing, basically, it's just, you know, I like that kind of disruptive. I like being told off by people online. You know, I like people getting on their high horse. It entertains me. And sort of writing silly posts to almost goad people into getting on their high horse. I don't know why. It's just, it's something foolish about how foolish we all are, just to sort of keep being disruptive and at the same time share all the tender things. I don't only share the disruptive things. I also share the things which are tender for me. I share the things which are like illuminating for me. Wow, I want to share that, you know. Or if I'm working one-on-one with somebody, something might come out of my mouth in a certain way, which is like, wow, that's a really great way to say it, and I like want to write a blog about it. Or so it includes all of it. I just don't disinclude the edgy stuff.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's weird because social media is its own land, isn't it? I call it the wild, wild west, and I'm not including myself in that, because as you know, the amount of times I've had to stop myself from responding to your, I'm like, he's doing it again. I'm not doing it. And then I'll still be thinking about it anyway. So I might as well have just done it. And I find it all really fascinating and highly interesting. The way that humor is funny as long as it's not triggering you. Do you know what I mean? Like, my humor preference is, well, that's not funny. That's definitely not funny.
There's a thing for me also about being as imperfect publicly as possible as I can be, because, like, on the one hand, I'm selling, I'm doing workshops and sessions where I'm basically really helping people out emotionally, spiritually, creatively. It includes the spiritual. I'm not being a conduit for Jesus or anything, but being an environment where someone's natural, high-spirited, confident juiciness is alive, that's spiritual. It's not religious. It doesn't have to have Hindu gods around it, but it's the feeling of people being in good spirits is spiritual, which means bringing more of themselves, being more of their, it's a very human thing. And if while I'm doing that, there's a tendency when you're being a big mouth, and especially when you're saying profound truths or things that are really connecting with people, there's a tendency for people to elevate you or project onto you that you're special, or project onto you that you're the demon, or all kinds of different things they decide when you live like I do publicly. So it's a great importance for me also, it seems to have always been, to keep popping the bubble of holiness, to keep sending myself up more as like the David Brent from The Office of spiritual teachers, like someone who's actually really sexist and arrogant and totally like not someone you would want to follow at all, whatever you do. And something exciting for me about like throwing onto the sacrificial fire, the holiness, and slipping up and being an idiot and being like, just like foot in the mouth, making people eye roll.
Yeah. And
balancing the holiness with that is important.
I think so. I agree. And, thank you so much for doing it. And I've really, I've really started to kind of bring this into my work. As you know, I'm a yoga teacher, but I don't like to say that anymore, thanks to you. I'm like, I have spent 2019 just going, do you know what? I really want to think about how I am contributing to separateness. And because I realized that I was, getting antsy about but I was arguing the same point. This polarity thing that's going on. And I think it's great what you're doing. For me personally, it's been great to help with how am I being a so-and-so right now? How can I just contribute to the whole instead of, I know obviously I slip up all of the time, but it really does make me think. So thanks for that. I wanted to pick up on that note. I'm dyslexic, and I've noticed that you play Scrabble, which is great. Love Scrabble, but obviously it's interesting playing me. And the second is that you do pick up on people's spelling mistakes. How does
That's a perfect example of just being an annoying person for my own amusement.
I saw you do it quite recently, actually. I was like, oh man, I so would have fallen for that. Especially
when somebody's being antsy. Like if they've just written any old thing, I'll correct it just for silly. But if somebody's like making a point, you're doing this wrong, who do you think you are, da-da-da-da-da. For them to put a spelling mistake in a rebuke is a red rag to a bull for me.
Oh, I think it's genius. However, would you say that you're a perfectionist? Because I really don't know whether you are or whether you aren't. And if so, would you say that being a perfectionist is both helpful and unhelpful, and in what ways?
I'm a perfectionist without being a details person. It's like I want perfection, but I want to delegate it to someone who does that perfectly rather than spend 12 hours trying to do it myself perfectly. I do the things that I do perfectly, the talking, the thinking stuff up, the art direction, whatever the thing, things that I do, the directing, the briefing, the editor. But I want the editor to be the one that spends the 8 hours during the day cutting it that way beautifully and exporting it at the perfect digital rate for it to be online mastered at some other. I don't want to do the technical processes perfect. I want some, but I'm a perfectionist in that I will always get the best person in the world to do that job, unless it's one of my jobs.
Yeah.
So that's what I encourage everyone for all their creative projects. Even if you think you're at the low end of the heap or the middle of the heap, always go to the top of the heap for all your technicians and all your musicians and all your people that are doing the bits of your project. Give lots of it away, make them personally involved, give away tons of the revenue. Even if you end up with 5% of the profits at the end, it's better to have 5% of something that was incredible than to have 95% of something that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So always give people a slice of the chunk if you can't afford them, but make sure you get the best of the best of the best doing all the different important things of the job, including the admin.
That's really interesting.
Because you are devotional to your project. This is the important thing. Your project is like a unicorn. So it's a mystical beast that you're devotional to. You groom it, you water it, you give it all its favorite treats. You owe it to your project to have the best accountant, to have the best admin, to have the best editor, to have the best sound engineer, to have the best photographer, to have the best whatever. The project comes first, becomes before your profit. The project comes first before your self-esteem. So it's not like it's only worth doing if everyone thinks I'm amazing when I bring it out. That's saddling your unicorn like a donkey to carry your self-esteem issues up the hill. It's not its job. That's taking from it. We're there to be giving to it, like our kids. It's like trying to get your kids to bring you pride by being an accountant or a lawyer. That's using them for your whole.
Yeah.
What we do as a yin parent is we be the perfect environment around the child for it to grow into the perfect tomato plant it wants to be, but it's up to the kid. It's not for us. It's like us serving it. And it's the same with our project. We're serving it, and therefore we owe it to it to bring the best. So in that way, I'm a perfectionist. In other ways, I'm a perfectionist in the sense of I've got to sort of be in my bonnet around not lying. Not be in my bonnet, but I know a lot of people that lie a lot easier than I do. And I lied recently to the kids' school, pretended there was a dentist appointment so I could kidnap one of my kids and go to lunch. But it took a while for me to work myself up to it. And I could save a lot of money and I could make life on the surface easier by telling a lot more lies. But I'm a bit of a perfectionist around it and around other people's honesty as well. That's probably a good thing, but it definitely in the short term can be a pain.
Yeah, and what do you think has brought that about in you? Because that was something that's interesting you brought that up, but that's something that I really struggled with. And in my parenting, it was quite, interesting in the sense that I always felt shifty. So what is it that, is that something that you've learned as an adult, or is that the way that you've always been?
No, I think it's something I've learned as an adult. Just something, it's not even like an individual piece of information. As I have been more in contact with what I would call life's genius or the divine or God or whatever, as I've been in more contact with what I feel is beyond my fleshy, self-cherishing ego, the alignment of it, the synchronicity of it, the things where it illuminates me, tricks me, is generous to me nearly all the time. The lessons, the humor of it, the relationship of it, it just seems like you just have a sense inside of something that's a no and something's the yes. It's not like something you learned as a child or someone gave you that bit of information like in a school where you're in a kind of place where doing certain things just doesn't feel right in yourself. And that's all I can say. It's just like it just there's part of me that says it's like a force field. It goes, oh no, there's an inner guidance, a compass that just says no when when there's a lie possibility.
That's really interesting. I'm thinking about social, etiquette and needing to be good or fit into a certain thing, so this is all really, of course, then you're going to go on to do the work you do around shadow and just being honest and all of these things. It makes
I think I was lucky in the sense that because I was kind of like, I had a pretty, from 0 to 10, I had quite a bumpy childhood in the sense that I was mirrored as that I was wrong, I wasn't what was wanted, I was too much, I was a trouble kid, I was dirty, dishonest. I was like quite rejected quite meanly by all generations teachers. You know what I mean? It was like quite, and I think that actually like made me give up trying to please people. I think it was actually, it had a couple of really positive effects, which I don't live my life hoping everyone will see me as this, or what would people think about that, because that was all ruined.
Yeah.
The idea that I was going to get my juice by being a conformist, what everybody thought was appropriate being, was just beaten out of me. So yeah, I just was never going to get the juice from that, the currency, the feeling of welcome or belonging from. So when I see other people going, oh, you know, being really, really, like, it made me be able to put a lot of projects out, and yes, fail big, get told no, you know, like because I don't expect everyone to be nice anyway. Like I don't expect everybody to be, oh, Jamie, you're so wonderful. It's good to have lots of bumps, because it makes you realize, oh, it's not so important to put out a perfect project.
Yeah. I
don't have that perfectionism around all the details of everything, or that what will people think, or is this going to make people think I'm this kind of artist? Or I never think about that stuff, because like I just have, what people think of me wasn't something I could use as a currency as a child. So I just gave up caring about it, and I think that freed me to put out a lot of posts or work or blogs or films or music that other people would think, oh, I don't know if that's good enough, or I don't know if that's, what will people think? Am I enough of a genius? It's like, I think I was freed from that, because I wasn't expecting the positive feedback.
Yeah. You did the letting go really early. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Going back to the perfectionist then, and what you were just saying about that, when it came to editing the film, was there a key moment when you were like, yeah, that's it? It's in the can.
It's going to be okay. Yeah. There was a couple of key moments. There were years and years of it just not coming together visually. His voice and the music and everything, perfect, no problem. But to make it be a visual film for an hour and 20 minutes, that stage was like, oh.
Yeah, because there's a lot of footage in there, archive footage. It's amazing.
A lot of it is him talking, and whenever I've got his face talking, I don't have any need to cut away to other images, because he's so charming, his eyes are so twinkly. I don't really need, when I've got the visual of him talking, but when I only had the sound of him talking, I had to put visuals on top, because I don't have his actual face to cut to. And so the first breakthrough was because I didn't want to look just like a YouTube clip with rushing clouds and opening flowers, which is what, just nondescript beauty that people put next to wisdom. I thought that was going to look embarrassing and shit.
Ziba moved away all nondescript videos.
So we had to sort of think of something else. And I tried a few things, like there was one cut we did where it was only shots of my children illustrating everything. That had some good bits, but it wasn't quite right. Then one of the editors cut together one of the beginning bits where he's talking about the spacesuit we all inhabit as the human body, and you go into somebody training. Cut this section using old 50s documentary footage of scientists prodding babies, and it was very, very like charming antique 50s and 60s footage of when everyone was very proper and
and when the moon landing was real.
Yeah, exactly. So when that footage came together with his wisdom, it was really original and interesting and wonderful. And it also fitted because when he was a Harvard professor, that was his era, the 50s and 60s, so it fitted with that aesthetic. And then the next bit was that Duncan from One Giant Leap had a go and edit, and the last 15 minutes of his edit was so perfect, the end speech about death, that I don't think it changed from that moment. That was the last 15 minutes of the film pretty much, or close to. So we had the first bit with the somebody suit and the spacesuit, we had the end bit, and so when you had the bookends, you've turned the corner now. It's just putting the stuff in the middle. When you've got the beginning and you've got the end, you've really turned a corner. It's like the corners when you're doing a puzzle. Once you've got all four corners linked up, it's just filling in the middle now.
Flying. Yeah. And I guess I'd like to know how Ram Dass responded. I know that, well, I don't know how you personally felt about that, but maybe you could enlighten us as to that as well. But how do you feel that he responded?
Yeah, nice. At first he was just like, he's just not in the place of movies. He's in his late 80s. He's sitting next to the veil in the stillness of loving kindness. He's not. But at the same time, he was really nice about it. And then it went up a level of niceness when it was screened publicly and it won an award at the Maui Film Festival and everybody was loving him up and just it had a really big effect. And suddenly more and more cinemas were taking it in America. I mean, it didn't go beyond the choir, but it's still, for the spiritual people, it was a good piece. And he was, you could see his excitement that it was a really good vibe. We had a really beautiful last chat on Skype where you could see he was buzzy and very happy.
And how did that make you feel?
Totally, exactly. It's like I've always had a bit of a daddy complex with him. It's a big part of the film, me being, my coming there to get anointed and told by Abraham that I was now the father of the Jews was, I was coming to partly get anointed. And that's like me coming and slightly failing, but succeeding to do that is the kind of understory of the film alongside all his wise archive.
Yeah, lovely. And would you say that, because you touched on like the choir there, I've been to America, but I've never been to California or anywhere like this, any of the cool, kooky places. Would you say that they're more broadly open spiritually? Do you feel a particular vibe there that maybe isn't so...
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally, because they've got much worse taste. So they're totally okay about dolphins and rainbows and things that the Brits would be like, oh, darling, I don't think that's for us. But the Americans, they've got no problem with totally kitsch, childish taste. So that is a real advantage when you're entering spiritual things, because there's a lot of very garish material out there, but good material, but covered in a lot of distasteful garb.
It's great being British, isn't it? Oh, so weird. Ram Dass, he speaks about the heart, from the heart. What would you say insights? Did you come away with any, for want of a better word, spiritual insights that maybe you hadn't touched on before?
I think the big one is what he said to me at the end. He goes, I hang out with saints and karma and gods and goddesses and my family, spiritual family. He goes, you're one of them. You're one of them. And you don't see that. And that was really the thing of just like, there's only me keeping myself on the outside. And I notice it, I do it in relationships as well, that I consider myself either inside the temple or outside the temple, or in favor or out of favor, or inside the circle of trust or outside the circle of trust. And I've got this big inside-outside thing that is only mine. Like, no one is doing it to me. Like, it's only my framing and my filter that's keeping myself on the outside for most times. So that, my own filtering is what needs to be looked at, rather than needing other people to treat me differently.
That's really lovely. Oh, I'm quite moved. That's beautiful. On that final note on the film, what are your thoughts around, because obviously, Ram Dass is very special to you. What are your thoughts around gurus or teachers, or, that kind of projection, or as I personally laugh at myself, this kind of Monty Python, kind of everybody on their pillar, but also, which I love that scene, but also this seeking, just love it, this seeking, and when you do find someone that yes, I can place my heart here. Yes, what are your thoughts on that? Because it gets like an interest.
It's a minefield. It's a minefield. Of course, it's a minefield. At the level that most people are operating in their life, isn't really spirit. Even in the self-development circles, it's training graspy egos to act more like souls and make things more comfy. It's not the same thing. Yeah. There's a whole level of teachers and gurus and self-help books which is really not about dropping straight back into spirit, where it's already there, the river is already rushing, the creativity, the intimacy, the authenticity is all available right now.
Yeah.
So you can step into that and just be that, which is what I'm really trying to do in my everyday and in all the stuff I do. or you can stay in the ego thing, but act more like a soul. But as a way for personal gain, as a way to get more, as a way to avoid more trouble, as a way to neutralize discomfort, as a way to escape the yuckiness of life. And that, a lot of people are selling that, you know, do this and be free. And it's like, it's not about that. It's about being okay. It's not about making it sunny every day. It's about being okay with clouds.
Yeah.
And knowing that, and not blowing them out of proportion. A cloud is just a cloud, you know, and it passes just like a sunny day passes. And you don't need, when you're feeling heavy or depressed, to go into a great big analysis of why and my mother's issues and this and that and the other. Sometimes you just need to just be with yourself and just say, hi, old friend. Just be here and nothing more. No analysis necessary. The mind constantly trying to solve the problem because it thinks it can get you away from the feeling. Everything is in the name of preserving the comfort zone of nice feelings. So it's not really spiritual progress. It's analysis to try and get away from the edge. And people kid themselves massively that they're doing the work when really all they're doing is trying to get rid of something. It's the exact opposite of the work, because the real work is trying to not get rid of something, is to try and become a wine taster of that thing so that life's genius can recalibrate. And yes, it will be more comfortable, but it's not to get rid of pain. So that's my fear about a lot of this genre of snake oil, is it's actually teaching people to turn away and get rid of rather than turn towards and become more intimate with themselves, their feelings, other people. And I want intimacy. This is all about connection and intimacy. You could say maybe my whole career is a reaction against the loneliness of my childhood. And I normalized loneliness, and then I suddenly discovered through music and through art and through other things I could have deeper connections with people. But it's only because it has that intimacy in it, where we're showing more than just the normal, safe, appropriate shop window that everybody in their tight-assed, you know, Instagram reality wants to show each other. You can live like that. 95% of the people do live like that, and they can only possibly have the intimacy when they're drunk or when they're at a funeral, or you know, like these extreme moments, or when they're having a breakdown. That's the only time they can dare to reach out for intimacy. I want it every day. I know it's available every day, with the greengrocer, with the bus conductor, with my own stupidity, with the angels that are punking me. I want that intimacy, and that includes having to be more of the full spectrum of a person. It includes being vulnerable. We're living in the life of never be exposed. No, do be exposed. Never be vulnerable. No, do be vulnerable. Never look weak. No, do look weak. Never fail. No, do fail. There's lots of discovery. All the rules we've been given in this fake culture are the exact opposite of what we really need to do to have the lovely connection, intimacy, creativity, and sexiness that we want. So I've learned that, and I just try and live it as much as possible and embody it and make all my work out of it and invite people to that, because it gives me the connection that I want, and creates a whole world of that very easy to achieve attention, connection. It's easy to achieve. It's not like people look at it like, oh, I need to do all this shadow work. I need to go and do this. I need to work on myself. It's like, you don't need to hardly do anything except fucking chill out.
It's true. And I think we quite often, you know, maybe, you know, I guess it varies from culture to culture, because I did notice a shift when I came and experienced intimacy with women in India. But I do think we sometimes, like you say, we wait for mass crises as well. You know, everyone's saving everyone is such an absolutely stunningly beautiful human being when there is a crisis. And then, you know, you're kind of walking past each other in the morning. You don't even want to make eye contact. And, you know, I guess I really appreciate what you're saying about that. And it's all there. It's all there. That's why I love India, because it's all there here too. Can we talk about, I want to talk about creativity with people, because on this podcast, I'm really just trying to get amazing people like you to really simplify it, how we get from
make it efficient,
A to B. So in your book, Insanely Gifted, for most of us, I should imagine we are receiving input all of the time, ideas, opportunities for creativity. How would you say is a way that we can capture and explore those ideas, but without committing to them or jumping ahead?
Just all you have to do is make a little start. The way that I do it, because it's making a start is the problem. I mean, choose your medium. Today it's watercolors. Tomorrow it's a guitar or a piano, whatever. or it's just interviews, like conversations with people. You know, you'll find immediately there's a list of reasons come up in your brain why you shouldn't bother. Who are you to do it? You're probably not that gifted. You're going to be a laughing stock. You're going to look stupid. All these reasons are nonsense, because no one has to. You're not going to be a laughing stock because nobody has to see it until you and your friends think it's good. So there is not this exposure that everybody is scared that there is. No one has to see it until you and your friends think it's good. The other thing is that the way I trick myself, because getting started, what has to happen for creativity to happen is that the ego, the controlling, generating part of us that runs most of our life, isn't the bit that's going to do great creativity. The bit that's going to be great creativity is the same one in you that dances, the one that is moved by the beat. When you're dancing, you're moved by the beat, you're yin. When you're doing most of your life, you're yang, you're generating it, you're getting the shopping, feeding the kid, doing the thing, making the call. So it's like a doing, generating thing. The creativity is not moved by that. It seems to be because it's generating, but it's not. It's the yin. It's like the part of you that gets moved, the part of you that laughs, the part of you goes, oh, that's a good idea. It's the part of you that is impacted by the world. It's your yin. And because that is a less controlled thing than your usual ego, the ego doesn't want to let go into that. It's just like a little kid that doesn't want to go to sleep. It's too interesting being in charge. He doesn't want to go to sleep at night. Life's too interesting. So the ego, it's counterintuitive for the ego to want to take a back seat and let the creativity flow. And a lot of people don't get past that stage. They look at the guitar, they look at the pen and paper, and they just feel this sinking feeling. And that sinking feeling is like the ego saying, I don't want to go to sleep, like a little child that doesn't want to go to bed. And so people indulge it and go to the fridge instead and have a biscuit. So you have to trick yourself into starting. And that's a huge thing for me for writing my book. If I hadn't tricked myself into starting, what I do is I promise myself that I only have to do 5 minutes. That's all we're doing today. We're only doing 5 minutes creative work today. And if we just do 5 minutes every day, that's all that's required of us. Of course, once you start and you've done 3 minutes, you're into it now, and you'll do half an hour or an hour, because you like, otherwise, if you're not, then it's not the right project for you, because if it's not enjoyable, it's about starting and all those different reasons not to start. If you can just trick yourself into starting, it's like the housework or the accounts. Like you can't be fucked into clean the house. But the moment you actually get the cloths out of the thing and you're doing it, it's actually the radio's on, you're just enjoying it. It's now a meditation. Then the feeling after having done it, even for half an hour, the kitchen's looking spotless. It's like, I can really sit down and read my book now, and I've earned it, or I've I can do it with a sense of peace. And so just making a start is the trick for me. Is you've got to and it's the same with yoga. I don't do it ever, but if I could just get on the mat and just do 2 positions, I'll do 5, because while I'm here, so it's about starting, tricking yourself into starting. And one way to do it is to promise yourself you're only doing 5 minutes, whether it be yoga or creativity.
I think that's really great. I don't like an enormous pennies just drop for me. But I do actually, I do that with yoga. I'll just pretend I just roll around on the mat until something happens. That's really fascinating. And when quite often so let's say, for example, we have started, and while we're starting, we're now worried. So we're now walking up the mountain, but we keep looking at the top of the mountain, and we keep worrying about the mountain. How would you, so you're in the process, how do you draw yourself back to the present? Do you remove yourself from the situation altogether to get out of your head? What is it that stops you thinking about the end goal?
It varies from moment to moment, but basically I would say that if you're feeling, whether it be a creative process or a relationship thing or whatever, if you're worrying, then it means that there are some beliefs in there that are coming up to be dissolved. That's the model I work from. Like Bashar says, when you have a bad feeling, it's like an out of tune note on the piano. It's showing you where the piano needs to be tuned. It's a good thing. So if you're having a worry, it means you're believing something that's not true for you. Like, if she left me, I would die, is a worry that most people carry. And therefore, the moment she's talking and having an animated conversation with another male, suddenly I'm having a death experience or an adrenaline danger experience when there's no danger whatsoever. But what it's showing me is that I've got a belief that says, God, if she ever left me, I would die. Life would be unlivable. which is not true, life would be unlivable for a month. It would maybe be painful for 3 months, but trust me, after 4 months, you're having some good times elsewhere. You know what I mean? In your life. Yet we live as if our whole life would be dead if the relationship ended. That's just an example. But, you know, people have this thing of their creative thing of what if it's rubbish, or what if I'm not really talented, everyone else is. The doors of genius are closed to me. Just, you know, I'm not special enough. Or you'll notice from the content of the thoughts that you're running immature beliefs. While you're worrying, the wise, kind version of you has gone spiritual narcolepsy, is asleep. And the worrier, and you're believing the worry as if it's truth. It's got control of the wheel. So what that means is you're asleep. So the first thing to notice is, I'm worrying, I must be asleep. What am I believing that's not true from the perspective of my wise, kind self? Oh, I'm not special enough. This is also important. I'm going to be a laughing stock. You know, you can even write them on a bit of paper. What am I? And then the wise, kind version of you that's now awake that wrote them on the bit of paper goes, do I want to live as if those things are true? I have a choice here. I know there's an urge because of those feelings and those childhood beliefs, but do I actually want to live as if that's true? No, I don't. Okay, so we're just going to carry on. Notice the worry. Give it a nice stroke like you would to your child. But don't worry. I know you're here to protect me from looking stupid, from looking ugly, from being a laughing stock, from whatever the things you think you're protecting me from that I told you to protect me from when I was a child. But we don't need to do that anymore. I'm a grown-up. So you don't need to protect me from looking stupid. I'm happy to look stupid. You don't need to protect me from falling on my face. I'm happy to fall on my face in this creative project. You don't need to protect me from people thinking that I'm a bit weird. I'm happy when they see this project for the ones that think I'm weird. So we're all right. And you just do it consensually with the worrier and bring it along for the ride, very consensually, very gently.
That's lovely. Thank you for that. And I've lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, okay, I will do that. I will do that more often. So everyone is a creative force. Everybody has that within them, and we're all here creating different experiences and things for each other. Would you say? I'm assuming that you would agree that everyone is creative. How do you say you're a kind of person who says that they're not creative, but they want to be creative, but they're not sure how to even begin the journey to find out what is it within me that would like to be burst out to whatever level, it doesn't matter, but I don't consider myself to be a creative person.
One thing is you ask yourself, what did you used to play doing when you were left alone as a child? That's what Paramasanda Yogananda suggests. Ask yourself, what did you used to do for enjoyment when you were left alone as a child? How did you used to play? That's a big clue. Or just experiment if you want to be creative. The point is there's nothing at stake. Buy some paints, buy some watercolor, buy some colored pencils, buy a lump of clay. You know, I mean, sometimes if you're feeling creative, just do silly things like arrange the food in a face when you're making the omelette for your child, put the carrots around the top for hair and put peas where the eyes are. You know, that's creative. You know, it's not just like a creative project that needs to have its own Facebook page. It's like in whatever you're doing, you know, like if you're bringing your lover breakfast in bed, do it in costume. Just for the stupidity. You know, I just decided once with a girlfriend when I, you know, just to sort of stole her lipstick and did sort of red hearts around my nipples, for no sexual thing, just for the stupidity of it. I totally forgot I'd done it, and then getting to bed that night, kind of pulled off my top, and there are these two nipples with big red hearts around them. And it was just like a great stupid moment. That's being creative, like just for the stupidity of it, not for any feedback from people that you're creative, not from any money or from status or anything, but just for your own silly enjoyment with your children. Be creative. Make a mixtape for an old friend that you haven't spoken to forever. You know, make a little playlist for them and be a silly DJ in between songs. You know, just whatever. You know, like if you don't mind looking a fool, then the whole palette is open to you. Just be stupid about it. Don't make it so important what people think of it. Like, no one gives a fuck. Your own little pastry, make your own little cake, whatever.
Lovely. And we talk about, it's a byword in the wellness and yoga community, authenticity. what is, when we talk about embodying and authenticity, but what does authenticity mean to you on a daily basis? How would you describe that if that word was thrown at you in a game?
Well, just, not wearing all the masks that is the shop window fake version of ourselves that isn't really who we are in our inner life. Not only saving our inner life for the people when we're drunk or your only best friend and telling everyone else some other story, because it removes the intimacy you want with people. That's the thing. I'm not talking about sobbing about drug addiction. It doesn't have to be all the heaviest, muckiest, yuckiest things, but just your general everyday stuff, like your humanity. The other thing is that, which is the most important thing when you talk about authenticity, like the number one thing, which is the number one practice of life, is to know the difference. What I think is the real you and the real me is wise and kind. Is the one that's got quite a lot of equanimity, is wise and kind, and is not triggered by anything, and it's just the normal, sweet, gentle, fun person I am. There's also a bunch of other voices in there who are constantly trying to protect from looking stupid, looking weak, getting poor, whatever. All the childhood wounds to be protected against never feeling those things. And those voices, when they get stimulated, jump in and put the wise, kind version of me and you to sleep while they're rattled until they're satisfied again. And then we can be wise and kind and come back. The wise, kind one to me is the authentic one.
Yeah.
The other ones are very sneaky ventriloquist puppets that use my mouth or use my brain and make me think those thoughts are real when I'm upset. This is exactly what I think. No, that fucker's an arsehole. I'm going to, and you feel very true about it when the trigger has got you. But it's not real. So to know the difference between the wise, kind version of me and all those other voices is the number one thing of authenticity of all. To know which is the real me and which are the monkeys.
Yeah, that's great.
You're frozen.
Can you still hear me? So, Jamie and I just had a wardrobe change. And in that time, Jamie actually managed to leave the continent and come back just like Mr. Ben. So, thank you for that. So we were just mentioning about authenticity and you were talking about the different monkeys that come up. And the next thing I wanted to ask you about was how you perceive embodiment. Is it a rooted unfurling that's something that comes from groundedness, or do you see it more as fractal, momentarily coming together, aligned with consciousness or other?
For me, embodiment is obviously about the body, but it's really about integrity. Embodiment is like living it in your thoughts and in your actions, not just in the theory. So that's why embodiment is so important, because particularly for things like teaching or parenting, the kids are only going to do what you do. Our embodiment is what teaches our children, not our words. So it's about how you move. There's this old book that I used to love when I was sort of into being spiritual. There's this book called The Gospel of the Essenes, which was the Christ gospel that wasn't included in the Bible. And there's this woman in it who's saying to Jesus, I keep telling my husband to come and see you, and I tell him about all your teachings, and I tell him about it, and he's kicked me out, And Jesus goes, look, you've got no one to blame but yourself. You shouldn't need to tell him anything. Just by the way that you make a cup of tea, just by the way that you open a door, just by the look in your eye is how you radiate this energy. And so just by being a certain way in your heart, the way you're thinking about things, the way that you're acting upon things, the way that you're responding to people, if that's coming from your wise, kind, alive, equanimity self, you won't need to teach anything. You just be it, and you create a field of that beingness around you, and everybody else gets awoken into that field when they're near you, like a great tennis coach. When you play tennis with someone much better than you, you're in their field of betterness and you play better. Yeah, and it's the sort of same thing, that we create a field through our embodiment. So we're not trying to work hard on our compassion. We're not trying to work hard on our embodiment. If you need to work hard on your embodiment, you're not embodied. So it's not about working hard on anything. It's more like just dropping straight into that place where it already is. And that's actually what I'm doing on this new workshop, which is called Beyond the Shadows into Peace. It's not so much about games to make the ego act more like a soul. It's more about just dropping back straight into the place where the soul already is.
Yeah. And being on that slipstream.
Yeah, and being kind when you slip off. Not looking at yourself as a bad spiritual warrior,
Yeah. On the wagon.
The most important thing.
Wagon, holding on to the wagon, onto the wheel. It's really easy to do that, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you tune in then? What's your, I don't want to call it a routine, I don't want to call it a habit, but how do you, in the main, tune into yourself? Just tuning into yourself.
The moment I remember to do so, I've already done it. The moment that in my mind I've gone, am I connected to, where's that connection? The moment I'm like put my attention on that connection, there it is. So there's nothing to do other than remember that's what you want. But if something more is needed, like it's an anxious morning or whatever, I'm very big on like sort of the chest rubbing and just quietly saying, hello in there, just being welcoming, having an attitude of welcome to how I'm feeling. Generally does the trick. It's like most of the disconnection comes from some sort of resistance, either a resistance to how we're feeling emotionally, or a resistance to some thought we've had about something that's playing out with someone, or something that's a hassle, or just sort of unconscious binging. And normally like it's quite easy just to slip into those things. So the moment one notices oneself not feeling good, it means one's forgotten something. One's forgotten the connection. And it's not always by remembering the connection that uncomfortable feelings in the body vanish, but at least now they're being met with patience and love, and therefore the lack of resistance means that whatever the natural recalibration that the body is doing, or whatever thing it's doing that feels uncomfortable, the moment we allow it and be curious about it, then that lubricates the process. And the moment we're like, oh no, I don't like feeling this, I need a Reiki session, or oh no, I don't like feeling this, it's because I didn't do enough yoga, I'm such a bad spiritual person, or the moment you're trying to solve it, you're not there. When the mind is racing trying to solve it and find a way back, it's actually just be back and feel uncomfortable and go, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll cancel my clients this afternoon, or take a break from work, or ask the boss if I can just take a walk around the block or whatever. It's more like just remembering, and then not expecting that suddenly everything feels rosy and chirpy just because I've remembered. It's like I remember and I feel uncomfortable, so my memory is be uncomfortable lovingly.
Yeah, and I think when there's other people involved, it's also saying, I need some space as these feelings arise. This isn't the time.
You might do. Or you need some cuddles.
Or you need some cuddles.
That's more likely.
What are you saying, that I'm so British? I can't cuddle.
I don't know. You just said it. Yeah. Is that why you moved to India?
Of course that's why I'm in India, because we all cuddle here. I can get over all my childhood, sweeping it under the rug, Britishness, looking over the newspaper and going, is everything okay over there? Absolutely. So with that in mind, you're a parent, I'm a parent, you're mentioning children. For me, I'm sure it's the same for you. They are a constant source of love and challenge, and a reminder of where I could be more open to their improvement rather than trying to place anything upon them. I wanted to talk in particular about creativity and education, because as a child myself, I was very distracted. So how do you perceive distraction, and how do you work with that, maybe with yourself or with your children, encouraging them to go with it?
One big thing is like our contract with our kids is to be their parent, not to be their friend. I mean, it is friendly and you are their friend on some level, but the friend doesn't make you do stuff you don't want to do, whereas the parent does. And the parent has a contract with the kid that we know stuff they don't know. So you don't want to impose too much. You should be like this, you should be like that. But you can certainly remove certain things which are keeping them from being with themselves, like screens. I believe it's so important to limit screen time while they're, certainly under 14 or 13. And I'm a big believer that, look, people want an easy life. So if the kids are nagging, it's easy to put them in front of Finding Nemo and then get on with what you want to do. But it's actually much better we don't like seeing our kids making a fuss, but it's much better to let them make a fuss and get bored. The best thing for kids is boredom. Yeah. And people are so busy filling up their kids' activities life, and after school they do piano, and the other day they do ballet, and the other day they do whatever, because everyone wants their kids to do all this stuff we never got to do. And there's all these opportunities, but it's filling up their time far too much. And actually kids need a lot of integrating time to just do nothing and stare through the branches of the trees and see faces and be bored, and so therefore be more bored and then make a fuss. And you're like, look, sorry, go and be bored somewhere else. And then they, after you ignore their boredom for a bit, they come up with something creative, and you suddenly look out in the garden and they're building a pirate raft out of driftwood, or you know what I mean? But they have to get to that point by not being given the easy out. And it's the trouble with parents is a lot of people are so low threshold with their kids whining that they'd rather have a quiet life in the short term and do the unhealthy thing rather than put up with the fuss, but in the long term have a more creative and emotionally articulate child. So, I mean, my banner thing for kids is let them get bored. Boredom is good. Then they will come out of that boredom and do something about it. But if they don't need to do something about it, they don't need to work those muscles of creativity, and they can just sit passively on the iPad and let it all be done for them.
Yeah. And do you think then, in that case, I know that there are things like forest schools and things like this. Do you think education, obviously in an empirical system, there are uses to that? I'm not totally disregarding education at all. The chance that any child, that teachers actually even have the space for, there's always something that's got to happen by the end of half term or by the end of term, and your play will be ready then and your piece will be ready then. Do you hold that much hope? And how, if I gave you an unlimited budget?
Yeah, it'd be very different. I mean, I do like you got to find a balance, but school is created by men to create factory workers, to create obedient worker bees so that the wealthy classes can do fuck all. That's what the middle classes do. Like George Carlin, the comedian, he said it brilliantly. He goes, the middle class is there to do all the work so the upper classes don't have to do anything. And the lower classes are there to scare the shit out of the middle classes. And, that's really, really accurate. I mean, I would be mortified if I don't want my kids growing up thinking that they need to have a job or qualifications. Maybe it's just my problem with authority and how I was treated at school. Yeah. But, I don't know anyone, none of my friends or circle, and they're not all just artists and healers. None of my circle do anything that involved what they learned at school. I think far too much importance is put on that stuff. And if I was in charge of school, I would love to I've got a design for a school, which is the Heart Mountain Unschool, where it's child-led education, where we work through their passions. So, I would travel a lot with my kids with One Giant Leap and different things like that. And they would learn their maths by doing the travel times and doing the currency exchanges. They want enough money for their sweeties that day. well, how many rupees is it if I give you £2? How many rupees do I have to give you? You know what I mean? Like when they want the sweeties, suddenly they become amazing at maths. Huh?
Applied learning.
It's all applied. Yeah, I learned how to edit because I had to do the One Giant Leap video diaries. And I had a thing I wanted to make, so I would click here, do that, and suddenly I knew how to edit something, but I never really learned it. So yeah, I'm a big believer that they should be cooking for themselves. They should know how to swim. They should know about mediation and responsibility of language and compassionate language, and how to get, you know, the best out of each other through consciousness and love. All those things which are about life skills, you know, I mean, maybe even to learn how to do their taxes. You know, all things which are about living and about interaction with each other and community and collaboration. And that's how I would run it. And then I would allow the artistic kids who are not really doing science. I wouldn't try and get everybody to do a vaguely low level of everything. I don't mind streaming kids into the things that they're passionate about. And I don't mind them cooking a horrible lunch for themselves and clearing it up with the ingredients I gave them, because tomorrow they'll cook it better because they don't want a horrible lunch. You know, give them all the things to keep failing until they work out how to do it, and then they've had the experience of doing it, not just the academic information they need to keep writing down. It's a very old school idea, academia, where you're learning facts and learning how to present them in essays. It's just totally archaic. We want experiential stuff. You know, in Sweden and Norway and stuff, they are out in all weather. The kids every day, they're in their one-piece jumpsuit ski suits, but they're, you know, mittens and balaclavas, but they're fucking outside. Get them in their bodies, get them outside, get them interacting with each other in communication and collaboration, and save the history and the geography lessons for, you know, we don't need to learn about bloody Henry VIII's wives anymore. Enough. We don't need to keep going through Shakespeare when they're too young to understand it, just so the school can feel proud. It's not about that anymore. It's about living a human life. So I love all those forest schools and Steiner and all that. I wish there was much more of it, but the remit, you know, what the schools are told to do, which is to keep the factories running and the banks running and the Tesco's and Sainsbury's running, it's a million miles away.
With that in mind, obviously there is some kind of shift going on. And with that, there's many exciting things. Obviously, the internet is a great place for networking, and we've got whatever, AI coming and all this kind of thing. How do you see spirituality and wellness at the moment? Because looking around, as you know, over the past kind of, partly down to you, but over the past 6 months, I've been untangling myself and my dogma, slowly picking it away. And how do you perceive what's going on just from a bird's eye view? Because a lot of people who watch these videos are going to be in the yoga or wellness or creative industry, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm suspicious about that there's a shift going on. I don't really think there's a shift going on. I just think it's the same amount of conscious people and the same amount of unconscious people using different language. I mean, it is nice to see, I was driving around yesterday, and it is nice to see nearly every cafe now has something written outside saying vegan and veggie options. So that is a definite shift. 5 years ago, you couldn't get a vegan meal in England, you know, like anywhere. Now you can't fucking miss it on every corner. So, you know, and also yoga. I mean, the percentage of people doing yoga or self-development practices has definitely risen. And maybe there are more people on the streets with things like Extinction Rebellion, but I think this planet is set up to be unconscious. And I don't think it's a thing about I mean, maybe I'm being pessimistic. I don't think it's about us striving to create a better world together, but not necessarily succeeding. It's almost weird. It's like, it's about the journey, not the destination. And us all collaborating together to create a better world. It might not have any effect on the coltan mines of the Congo. It might not have any effect, but you can't know that. And certainly as a teacher, because we're so taught to quantify our success by how many people came, how much did they pay, all the kind of usual things. How deep did they go in the workshop? If I garner my sense of how well I'm doing by how deep I saw everybody go in today's workshop, that's a kind of selfish narcissist way to teach. Like, we're making food for them. It's not my job to know that your soul wants a whole plateful, this person only wants a mouthful, and the other one left at lunchtime. That's none of my business. It's like the souls on this planet know what they're doing better than me or you. We can sit here and go, there's a shift, or people's souls are doing this. We don't have any clue. The great pattern and matrix of what all the human souls are doing, we don't fucking know that this one was supposed to be a murderer and that one was supposed to be an angel and this one was supposed... We don't know what they're all meant to be doing. We don't know the rate at which they're meant to be going deep or awakening. We don't know. Our only job is just to put out the beautiful medicine food, and anyone that wants to come and eat it, that's up to them, but we can't attach to that. It's just like, here's all the lovely food. Oh, that soul wants lots. Oh, that one doesn't want any today. Oh, this one's having a deep experience. Oh, this one isn't. It's none of our business. What the souls are all doing and what the group soul is doing in the shift and I just don't think it's a conversation worth having. I just think, let's just bring it home. How are the souls in your house? How's your husband? How's your kid? How's your sister? How's your boss? Let's work out how those guys are and how we can serve them in feeling more compassion and ease.
Yeah.
The great thing, the cumulative actions of your actions and my actions and her actions and XR and it's not quantifiable. All we can do is just do our own bit. And, like, I have a passion that I want my stuff to reach lots of people. So, I make films and I make albums and they go all over the world and millions of people see them. But I don't think that's just my passion because I'm a Leo narcissist. But I don't think that means I'm doing better work or more work than anyone. Somebody else who's just working beautifully in their village school and those 17 children are super inspired, that's worth the same as Eckhart Tolle and all the book. We're all doing what we're doing, and this one happened to reach more people. It doesn't mean it's more important or bigger or better. This guy's building, a skyscraper. That guy's building a toilet for a school in Nigeria. One building costs 48 million zillion and one building costs $4,000. They're still vital, and you can't make one thing more important than the other. Beavers are making dams. Birds are making nests. Dams aren't more important than nests. Everyone's just doing their bit. Let's just really support the people near us that we can.
Yeah. I think it's so easy to come into my shift is better than your shift.
Yeah, and the panic that it's not going fast enough, the scarcity paradigm that we're also caught in, makes us all think it can't be going, it's not going fast enough, we need to do more. What can we do to do more? Just do more closer to home. If everybody planted a garden on their roof, if everybody, like my mum used to say this cool thing about, just in the house, just, when you live in community or live in a family with mess, no one likes mess. So the rule was in our house growing up was do all your own mess plus one thing more. If everyone does all their own mess plus one thing more, all the mess will be fine.
Well, that's lovely.
Yeah, my mum's wise.
Oh, your mummy's wise. She should come on the next podcast.
You should get her on. She started a great retreat centre in France for people that want to explore hard data on alternative healing.
Oh, really? I will get her on.
She's very you. Yeah, you should.
Yeah, whereabouts in France?
Near Toulouse.
Nice. Yes, please. Let's do that.
I'll intro you.
Thank you. What is thriving for you?
Thriving for me is just the basics of life being covered. Like I've always found it as an artist very anxious that, as an artist and as a spiritual master, all the money I make and the material plane carrying on ticking along is just like ideas out of my own head. It's like, how does this carry on? You know what I mean? I don't have a job. I don't have a guaranteed income. I just have to think up stuff, book a room, people come, you know. It's a big mystery to me. So like, you know, having gone through periods of my life, particularly around the time I got divorced, and the second One Giant Leap film didn't get released, around that time when the world economy was crashing around 2010, you know, I went from, you know, having money in Faithless, doing okay in One Giant Leap, then having no money and like literally like not necessarily even going to be able to make the mortgage payments, terror, living month to month. Now I still live month to month, but not in terror. But still some anxiety every month when that credit card bill comes. I have to steel myself to open it and hope it's not a grand more than I thought, because I forgot I was being a big shot and paid for everyone's dinner. So for me now, thriving is just the basics being paid for. That feels like utter luxury to me. There's petrol in the car, there's food in the fridge. The basics, just the basics. The rent's paid, the food's in the fridge, there's a summer holiday for the kids, and there's Christmas presents. You know, I don't need a big extravagant life. I don't need a posh car or Armani suits. I just need it to run. I need it to work, you know. And that's for me, I thrive, you know, when the material plane is covered. And it's very, most of the world is so much just in material survival. It's hard for people to have spiritual stuff in their lives, because it's like you can't be thinking about this lovely bourgeois state of my soul when your belly's empty and you may not be able to make your rent next month, you know. So yeah, for me, thriving is having the material plane covered. That's just ecstatic to me.
And I think that's a very loving space to come from, to, you know, to want to, I think as well that comes with age, the responsibility of recognizing that everything else was just for show in one way or another, because it's never ending. It's like being on a treadmill of this, that, and then children come along and it becomes a lot more about how good am I at literally going out with my spear and being able to make sure that they're okay. Jamie, what is coming up for you next? How can people find you and you down?
Just come to jamiecatto.com. There's always like workshops all over the place. If you can't reach me geographically, you can go to academyofthesacredfool.com, where my stuff is all like as an online course, the maze. Or best of all is work with me one-on-one. You know, one-on-one is my favorite way to work at the moment, because it makes real change really quickly and really efficiently and sustainably. So,
and if someone's going to work with you one-on-one, what can they expect?
Well, if you do the full proper mentoring package, which is a 3-month chunk, what I offer is 24/7 availability. No one has to make an appointment. No one has to limit the amount of my time that they have. They can call me every day. We can meet up as long as they like. They can come to every workshop, be next to me all the time. You know, that's quite the high end thing. I also do one-offs, you know, which is like an hour session plus 2 weeks messagey follow-up. I do it in all different ways to meet all different people.
Great. That's really good to know. I'm sure people will be really interested in that. Well, thanks so much, Jamie. Thanks for flying back and spending time with us. And
lovely.
I get to chat again soon.
Lots of love. Love the family.
Thank you.